This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by nhliberty.org. Alright, I'm standing here with Varrin Swearingen, president of the Free State Project and also a board member. And I have a controversy to ask you about today.
Alright, I'm ready.
That is the attempt by Jason Osborne and others to get a call center going to bring the Free State Project up to 20,000 members outbound calls. And there is frustration on the part of many that they can't seem to get an agreement with the Free State Project board to get this call center going. Why is it not happening?
There's a couple of stumbling blocks, and they relate to how the signups are collected, and particularly...
Hang on, just a second. Oh, we could start over, but we'll just keep going.
We'll just keep going, okay.
Where you were?
I lost my train of thought.
Oh, okay.
Why is it not happening? Let's see.
Yeah, I'll splice it together.
Why hasn't it happened yet? So, there are some objections relating to how we collect signups that hasn't been addressed yet. And the proposal that the Free State Project has gotten involves a particular method of collecting signups over the telephone. And because of the way this proposal is structured, there are some concerns that I don't know that we've exactly identified, but I think what it boils down to is a couple of things. The first is relates to people being paid to collect signups, and there's a potential conflict of interest there that doesn't relate necessarily specifically to telephone calls, but could be any form of signups. But you could imagine if I said, hey, we'll pay you if it's $35 or less per signup, or make up your own number, and so someone might say, hey, I can get signups for $35 a piece, kind of like people get registered to vote that way. And we want to avoid that potential fraud or the appearance of fraud. So we haven't, I don't think, come up with a great solution to that yet, although we are working on it. And then another objection relates to the nature of telephone signups themselves, and is that an acceptable way of signing up? I think that has mostly been or is being addressed in a variety of different ways. So my hope is that things can get resolved. To me, it seems like the biggest stumbling block is the conflict of interest.
Would it solve the conflict of interest if it was just a matter of people getting paid by the hour, so they weren't getting paid more if they got more signups?
Well, that might help, but the thing that we evaluate in terms of budgeting at Free State Project is what is the cost per sign-up. And historically, we've been an all-volunteer organization, and historically we've spent money on outreach based on what the returns are, not based on necessarily paying people to do the work per se. For example, with various forms of advertising, we just move the money around.
Now it sounds like you're blocking both of the exits.
What do you mean?
Well, you're saying you can't get money, you can't pay per sign-up, but you also can't pay any other way.
Well, and generally we haven't. Mm-hmm. When we buy advertising, we evaluate the person that we're buying the advertising from doesn't work for us. So there's a fundamental difference there. They have their own venue, for example, Reason Magazine, or whatever, Facebook. Facebook doesn't work for us, so Facebook's not going to go out and twist around the results, work to twist around the results to provide a particular rate of return. Mm-hmm. Whereas if somebody were working for us, it's conceivable that they could do that, and whether they do or not, someone from the outside could look and say, well, hey, you guys went from 10,000 to 20,000 in 6 months, let's just say, just to make up a ridiculous result, which, that could happen. Well, then what if those 10,000 people said, this looks fraudulent to me, and because the commitment is to move if 20,000 other people would do the same, those 20,000 other people may not really exist, so I feel like I'm not bound by
That's a lot of what if, Varrin.
Do you see what I'm getting at, though?
Yeah, but it's a lot of what if.
It makes the number itself look degraded or not as convincing, and because the number is important to a lot of people, it's important that there not be fraud or the appearance of fraud.
Do you think that it might be appropriate for us to impose the Free State Project board model on the government to keep it from ever getting anything done?
I would love it if the government never got anything done, or at least most of what they do.
It's not totally fair. on my part because you guys do a great job with the Liberty Forum and a great job with Porcupine Fest.
Well, and
this just seems like to be a real sticking point of the main purpose of the organization. We have the means of completing the mission.
I'm not opposed to a call center, and I don't think anybody on board is. The question is, are we going to pay somebody to provide a return and evaluate their performance based on that return where they're doing basically every component in the chain. They're doing the outreach and recording and collecting the signups and having us count them. And then we pay either, whether it be hourly or per signup, we evaluate based on that rate of return. And that has been kind of a sticking point. I don't know that we've figured out a way around it yet, but...
Do you think this could be done if it were a volunteer effort?
Probably, yeah. Okay. You know, if it came down to expenses for lists, then... You know, we've dealt with that before with direct mail programs, and we fulfilled the direct mail programs either on a contracted basis to people that weren't working for the Free State Project or with volunteers. And that method worked before, and we evaluated results based on the rate of return, and they varied from list to list. Well, that's something that's, creating the list is outside of the purview of the Free State Project. And it would be with the calling program also. That's not so much our concern. But, if the idea is that we're going to fundraise from this list and part or all of those proceeds would go back into the calling program to pay people and so on and so forth, there is certainly the economic incentive for fraud where there wouldn't be with volunteers. But there's two sides to that coin also, because when you look at putting together a volunteer effort, then you have the problem that we've had all along, which is it's difficult to keep volunteers motivated on an ongoing basis.
Right. Okay, well, Varrin, thanks for your time, and we'll see if any volunteers step forward.
I hope so. This is not a dead deal. We're continuing to work on it even as we speak.
I know the news release that the FSP had me write, when I first signed on, it was for free. That was also not a dead deal. It went on for weeks and weeks, changes and changes. So,
well, there's always something.
Yeah, it's a board model.
There is bureaucracy. I wish there wasn't.
Well, I don't know. It has definitely kept the Free State Project from losing its core values, I think.
Yeah, and that credibility is very important to us, which is why we're taking our time to make sure we do it right the first time.
Right. Okay, thanks, Varrin.
Thank you.
nhliberty.org